What is up, my friend? Happy Friday. One of the best days of the week. Am I right or am I right? So excited to bring you this first episode in a series, Faith Filled Friday. I'm going to try to do this every Friday. That's the goal, Lord willing. I also have some Wellness Wednesday and Money Mondays. In fact, if you missed Wellness Wednesday, I highly encourage you to watch the replay where we discussed how your health affects your business. And I also gave some tips and things that I do to help me perform at my best that you can adopt as well. Just making small tweaks. I also offered a free guide that would take some habits that one might have with the healthy swap so that you can perform and do all that God has called you to do. So today, Faith Filled Friday, excited to chat with you today about how starting your business with little to nothing and relying on God can really do big things. So I'm going to share my story and also give you some tips and things. But before we get into that, if you are catching me live, drop a flame in the comments. If this is a replay for you, please put a purple heart down below and go Rockets. Go Rockets. We are playing LA today. So while you're watching this, I'm actually in LA, although this was recorded in my home at 7:08 a.m. But I wanted to make sure that I could be in two places at once so that I could serve you and then be present with my mom. So anyway, let's get right into it. And the first thing that comes to mind is David. Do you know the story of David and Goliath? Put David in the comments if you do. See, God never asks us to start big. He just asks us to start with faith. What I've learned about the Lord over, the past several years that I've been living for, I say living for him. I laugh when I say that because I spent a long time not living for him, even though I went to church. Big difference. Anyway, totally different topic. I digress. But I think about David. David was a shepherd boy. He wasn't a warrior. He wasn't big in stature. He didn't have huge muscles. He wasn't a leader. He was just out tending the sheep. And what I've learned about the Lord is that he just wants us to trust him. He just wants us to trust him because I feel like when I think about the Lord, I think about him with just this bottle full of amazing plans and full of just abundance and all the gifts of the Spirit and all the things. And we hold ourselves back. And I really feel like that grieves the Holy Spirit. The New Testament says, grieve not the Spirit. And I feel like it really grieves the Lord when we don't trust him. However, he gets it. He understands. We're human. He made us. We like to live by what we see, what we hear, what we smell, what we touch, what we feel, right? All the things. And the Lord's like, listen, I want you to go back into my word, read my word, and get to know who I am and what I'm capable of. And that's what I've been doing. And so I want to challenge you in that first and foremost. That's my biggest tip for you is really get to know who he is. And you can even encourage yourself in your own testimonies. I want you to reflect back and think of a time when you were afraid. Think of a time when you had doubt. And what did God do? How did he come through? I could go on and on about that, my friend. Oh my gosh. Literally, I could sit here for the next several hours and share all of the amazing things that God has done and how he has shown up in my life. But back to David. So no one counted him. No one even counted. His dad didn't even acknowledge him when Samuel was like, where are all your sons? Like, where is everybody? Because we're missing one. And his, dad didn't even consider him. And perhaps you don't even consider yourself. You're not considering yourself. And that's okay. God doesn't necessarily want you to consider yourself. He wants you to consider him in you. Because what we know is that outside of him, we're nothing, right? We're nothing. with God, all things are possible. And when it comes to business, when it comes to starting a business, it's like we forget all that. And I hear it all the time from women who are like, I can't go live like you. And, I don't have the tech skills that you have. And, I'm not fit like you. And I'm not this, that, and this and that. And I feel like the Lord is like, wait a minute, but what about me? Why are you comparing yourself to Jana Brown when I'm the God of all the universe? Listen, I started my business in a season of grief and survival, not public speaking skills, not a large following, not a big resume. I didn't start my business with any of that. I started my business at a time when it seemed like an ignorant thing to do. I had $70 to my name, borrowing money from my parents, couldn't even take my kids to Chuck E. Cheese. My social media, practically non-existent. My friends, the God of all the universe wants you to consider him, not what you see in the mirror. So number one, get in that word, get to know who he is. He is, there's no words. I've been reading the Old Testament, and I'm trying not to rush because it's so fascinating to read and to learn what God did in the sight of his people. And I find myself in the word just like, holy moly. Can you imagine being present with Moses when Moses said, stand back and see the salvation of the Lord, and the freaking seas parted and they walked on dry ground? Can you imagine being there? And what's mind-boggling is there are 12 major accounts past that time up until Numbers. I'm only in Numbers chapter 25, 26-ish. But there are 12 incidences between the Exodus and Numbers 25, 26-ish where they still doubted and complained. And I'm reading that like, oh, how do we represent them? Oh, how we represent them. And I see how God was so discouraged during that time with them, and how he might be discouraged with us when God has this big, huge business, all these plans for you, and you're just not looking at him, but we're looking at ourselves. Listen, I started my business with nothing. I share my story all the time because I don't want you to compare your beginning to my middle. I've been doing this 13 years, but I'm telling you, I started with, I was toe up from the flow up. The only thing I had was just obedience and the desire to be present with my kids and just have a comfortable life. I've never wanted to be rich. I just didn't want to have to borrow money from my parents. I wanted to create experiences. That's all I wanted. And I don't know what it is you want. But whatever it is, I know God wants to give it to you in his time. But he can't work with nothing. Faith without works is what? Put it in the comments. Faith without works is dead. Small doesn't mean insignificant. Small means strategic when you surrender to God. And when you pair the Lord with anything you do in life, my friends, you can't help but succeed. Now, I can tell you, in my business, we have the best systems. We have systems I've never seen that make it so easy for the brand new person to step in and have success. We have incredible mentorship. We have the best leaders, in my opinion, that I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot of companies, my friend. I've been a part of some things. When you have the right people, the right products, and you've got positivity, there's not a negative word spoken out of any of our mouths. When you have all that, and just you, and you come along with your faith the size of a mustard seed, and the Lord by your side, holy cow, watch out for your future. If you have faith as small as a mustard seed, man, you can move a mountain. That's in Matthew chapter 17. Success, listen, success doesn't start with 1 million followers. Success doesn't start with fancy graphics. It doesn't start with, this amazing live video. Success doesn't start with any of that, my friends. It starts with trusting the dream inside your heart that scares you, that God put there. I think about my friend Betsy. I use her a lot in my stories because she's such a great example of faith mixed with action, mixed with doubt, mixed with fear, mixed with determination to overcome. And she's also full of humility and the willingness to follow the system. But and she's got dreams that are so huge. And she comes to the table with a lot of faith. And yes, she gets discouraged. And yes, she's doubting herself, but she always comes back to the Lord. And I love that. And whether you're in business or whether you're not, we can all learn from that, right? Put the word learn in the comments. No matter what happens in life, I can't imagine doing it without Jesus. But how exciting is it when you can come to the table with just your faith and your goals and your dreams, and you know that you're inadequate. You know you don't have the skills. You know you don't have the following. That is the prime opportunity for the Lord to say, watch out, like Moses did for the children of Israel, for the Hebrews, when Moses said, watch out, stand back and see, stand back and watch the salvation of the Lord. The Lord is like, stand back and see what I can do for you. Oh my God, I'm getting chills. I love him so much. Because where we are weak, he is made strong. No matter what your dream is, maybe you want to join me in my make business. Maybe you want to go into real estate. Maybe you want to fill in the blank. Maybe you just want to lose 50 pounds. Whatever it is, my friends, the Lord can do it. The Lord can do it. The only thing the Lord needs to work with is your belief paired with action. You have to take a step. And you might say, well, what if I mess up? He makes all things work together for our good, my friend. Oh, honey, has Jana Brown messed up a time or two? And the Lord has a way of fixing it all and cleaning it up and making it look so great that you would think that there was never a mistake made. Listen, if you're hiding behind fear, comparison, or thinking you missed your moment, I want you to remember David. I want you to think about David. I want you to think about Joseph when he had a dream and the whole world was coming against him. His brothers tried to kill him, threw him in a well, lied to him. Potiphar's wife lied on him. He spent years in prison, but God was setting him up and he knew it, and he never wavered. He never wavered. And the Lord put people in his path that would navigate him towards King. Read these stories. They're so inspiring. Or I think about Sarah. Sarah, the Lord said, you're going to have a baby. And she's like, what the heck? I'm like freaking old. But it came to pass. And of course, along the way, I feel like her and Abraham would have had Isaac a lot sooner, but they took matters into their own hands. Sarah was like, well, let's help God out a little bit. Why don't you go ahead and sleep with the handmaid? And, we'll just do it that way. I feel like Isaac would have came a lot sooner, but he came either way. She screwed up, but Isaac still came. He still came. He still came. Take the step. Take the step. God multiplies what we move on. He multiplies. If you're in a season of small beginnings, comment faith so I can pray over your journey. You're not behind, my friends. You're being built right now. Or, hey, DM me, start. If you're ready to build something with a mustard seed faith and a big God dream. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.